She couldn't help but feel as though she was caught between two worlds.
Steffany had thought that breaking up with Max would give her clarity.
She had imagined herself to feel something that wasn't there,
free from the
and
emotional
another where
weight that had
everything
been
was
weighing
simple
her down.
and perfect.
But
where she
instead,
could lose
she
herself
felt
in the
something
warmth of a
different,
dish that knew
something
her better
far
than
more
anyone
complex
ever
than she
had.
had anticipated.
As she finished
Max
the
hadn't
last
given
bite,
up.
Steffany
He
showed
leaned
up
back
again
in her chair,
just 2 days
her
after
heart
their
full
dinner,
and her
with a
mind
nervous
clear.
smile and a bottle of
She
her
knew
favourite
she had a
wine.
choice to make.
He wanted
Between
to
the
talk,
complicated
to
love
explain,
that Max
to
offered,
try and salvage
and the
what was
simple,
left of their relationship.
uncomplicated joy that
And
she found in
Steffany,
the pasta.
despite her resolve to
And
move
for
on,
the first time,
found herself
she
letting
wondered
him in,
if maybe,
letting him sit
just
across
maybe,
from her once more.
she didn't need to choose.
They talked.
Maybe
And
the
Max
love she
tried.
needed was already here.
He spoke with that
in this
soft,
small
earnest
trattoria,
voice that had
in
once
the
made her
warmth of
feel
a dish
safe,
that brought her more
and
comfort
Steffany
and
listened,
satisfaction than
nodding
any
in the right
relationship
places.
ever had.
But all the
Maybe
while
it
she
was
couldn't
time to
shake
stop
the image
searching
of the
for something
trattoria.
she didn't need.
She could almost
and
feel the
instead
warmth of the
embraced
pasta
the
on her
love
tongue,
that was already
the creamy
hers.
richness of the dip that had wrapped itself around each bite. She had never felt so content, so at peace as she had during that meal. "Steph, I know I messed up," Max was saying, his voice pulling her back to the present. He looked at her, his eyes full of regret. "I want to make this right. I want us to be good again." Steffany sighed, her gaze drifting to the half-empty glass of wine in front of her. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that they could find that spark again. But deep down, she knew that the warmth she craved wasn't something Max could give her. She couldn't explain it to him, not in a way he would understand. How could she tell him that what she wanted most wasn't the love of another person, but the simple comfort of a perfect plate of pasta? "I don't know, Max," she said softly, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. I don't know if we can get back to where we were." Max reached across the table, his hand brushing against hers. "We can try," he said, his eyes searching hers, pleading. "I love you, Steph. Isn't that worth something?" She looked at him, and her heart ached. She knew he meant it. She knew he loved her in his own way. But love wasn't supposed to feel this complicated, this exhausting. Love was supposed to be warm, comforting, like the pasta. Her thoughts kept drifting back to that moment at the trattoria, the way each bite had filled her with something real, something pure. She pulled her hand away gently, shaking her head. "I need some time," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Max nodded, a flicker of hurt passing over his face. He stood up, taking his jacket from the back of his chair. "I get it," he said, his voice resigned. "I'll give you time, but I'm not giving up on us, okay?" Steffany forced a smile, but said nothing. She watched as he left, the door clicking shut behind him, and a heavy silence settled over the apartment. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly, trying to clear her mind. She knew where she needed to be. That evening, Steffany found herself back at the trattoria, the comforting aroma of freshly cooked pasta filling the air as she stepped inside. She took a deep breath, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease. Here, everything made sense. There were no arguments, no expectations, no questions she couldn't answer. There was just warmth, comfort, and the simple pleasure of good food. The waiter greeted her with a smile, leading her to her usual table. "Back again so soon?" he asked, a teasing glint in his eye. Steffany smiled, nodding. "I couldn't stay away," she said, her voice soft. He nodded knowingly, disappearing into the kitchen. A few minutes later, he returned with the dish she craved, the crispy, chewy pasta, served warm with the creamy dip beside it. The sight of it made her heart swell, a feeling of anticipation washing over her. She picked up the first piece, her fingers brushing its crisp edges, and dipped it into the creamy sauce. She brought it to her lips, her eyes fluttering closed as she took the first bite. It was perfect. Better than perfect. The warmth spread through her, filling her with a deep, comforting satisfaction that she couldn't find anywhere else. Steffany sighed, her body relaxing, her mind drifting. She didn't have to think about Max or the complications of love or whether she was making the right choices. Here, there were no choices to be made. There was only this, this simple, fulfilling pleasure that asked nothing of her but to savor it. She dipped another piece, watching as the sauce clung to it, thick and inviting. She brought it to her lips slowly, her tongue savoring the way the flavors melded together. It was intimate, the way the pasta seemed to understand exactly what she needed. The warmth spread through her chest, her skin warming, a soft blush rising in her cheeks. She couldn't help but feel as though she was caught between two worlds, one where she tried to make things work with Max, tried to force herself to feel something that wasn't there, and another where everything was simple and perfect, where she could lose herself in the warmth of a dish that knew her better than anyone ever had. As she finished the last bite, Steffany leaned back in her chair, her heart full and her mind clear. She knew she had a choice to make, between the complicated love that Max offered and the simple, uncomplicated joy that she found in the pasta. And for the first time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she didn't need to choose. Maybe the love she needed was already here, in this small trattoria, in the warmth of a dish that brought her more comfort and satisfaction than any relationship ever had. Maybe it was time to stop searching for something she didn't need, and instead embrace the love that was already hers.